Hello and welcome to Mindscast 445. I'm Cindy Rader. In a prior video, we showed a simple Laravel application that displays and maintains a list of books. In this video, we're going to add some authentication. So our first step is going to be to add the users table to our system. This will take just a minute. So here's the migration for the users table. It's fairly standard with a primary key, username and password. Is admin just determines whether you have administrative rights, and the remember token, which is for the remember me option, and then the down function simply drops the table users. Next, we run the migration to actually create the table. Now we want to seed the table, so in our users table seeder file, we create two users, one which is admin, one which is a regular user, with, of course, very secure passwords. Then we add the call to users table seeder to our database seeder file. And then we use artisan db:/seed to actually load the data. So next we want to work on the views, and we want the login, logout buttons to appear always in the top right of every page. So we're going to update the master blade file. Notice this section here, div classes text right, that's where we're putting it. And we're going to make use of some functions from the auth class, specifically auth check. That returns true if the user is logged in, and if so, we're going to basically have a greeting here, logged in as who you are, and present a log out button. Otherwise, we're going to present the log in button. We're also adding the possibility of errors and not just messages to our flash. So we've added down here, if the session has an error, then we want to display that message. This would happen, for instance, if I enter an invalid user and password combo. Notice that both the logout and login buttons make use of the URL2 functionality, which creates an absolute path from a relative path. And the logout also includes a CSRF token, that's the cross-site request forgery token, to ensure that our logout doesn't get somehow maliciously redirected. Next, we create the login view, and this is a fairly standard form which just includes a username, password, and a submit button. So we want to see what progress we've made, so we go back to the command line, do PHP artisan serve. So we bring this up in the browser, and notice we do have the login link up here in the top right. Of course, we have not added a route yet, so I'm not going to bother to press it at this time. So I've added a route to the bottom of my routes.php file. It simply uses login as the pattern, and the action is to display the view named login. Now we go back to the browser, press the login link, and it does display the login page. Of course, we have not added any routes, so we won't try this yet. So returning to routes.php, we need to add the route post, because post, of course, is the verb that gets used when we submit a form using the login button. This route is a bit more complex than the prior one. We first use auth attempt to authenticate the user. Input is the way that Laravel gets user input. This can be used with either get or post verbs, and in this case we're using input only because we want to ensure we just get the fields of interest, which are username and password. If authentication is successful, we return the closure redirect intended, which will either go to a page that the user is trying to access, or we also have a default there of the /, which will take us just to the index page. If authentication does not succeed, we have the else statement, which basically stays on the same page and then displays the error message invalid credentials. So now let's test this. We'll first put in an invalid username and try to log in. Notice the invalid credentials error message that shows up. And now let me put in one of our two users, log in, and there we are. Notice up here logged in as Cindy. So now let's add the route for the logout link. It's a fairly simple one. Notice it makes use of auth logout. That ensures that we close the session so that a user can't log out and then someone come along and just hit the back button. And then we redirect to the index page. And we'll real quickly try this out. Press logout. And now we just have the login link again. So there's one more issue I want to show you, and I've logged back in again. Notice if I adjust the URL and type in login, it takes me to the login page, but I'm already logged in. This may not be critical, but we can prevent this using Laravel route filters. So the purpose of a route filter, is to limit access to a given route. And this is useful for sites that have authentication. So the idea is that if a filter returns a response, that's going to be the response to the request. In other words, you can avoid going forward to the particular route by instead substituting a different response. And there are 4 that come in the filters.php file for Laravel. We have auth, auth basic, guest, and CSRF. So let's look first at the auth filter. Within there, the first thing we do is we call auth guest. This returns true if the user is not logged in other words, if you are a guest. And if you're not logged in, if it's an AJAX request, we simply return an unauthorized page. Otherwise, we redirect back to the login page. For the problem we're currently trying to solve, we're going to use the guest filter. What this does is check that you are logged in. Now, auth check is sort of the reverse of auth guest. It returns true if you are logged in. And in this case, if you are logged in, then we don't want to go to the login page, and we will simply redirect to the index. So we need to add that guest filter to the login route. And this is how we do that. We put an array, so before filter we call guest, then we have our function, and notice if you are following along, we'll have one more parenthesis there to end this request. So let's just be sure this works. I'm back at the browser. Notice I have again typed in login into the URL. I am logged in. But notice it now does not go to the login page, but instead returns me to the index. So the final step is to ensure that some of the functionality is only available if you're logged in, and we do that with a route group. So here's the route group. Notice the before filter is the authorization, so that's going to ensure or guarantee that we are logged in. And then we open a brace and we put within here all of the functionality such as editing, creating, deleting, all of the things that we want to happen only if you're logged in. And then down here, I actually have the ending brace for the route group. So let's try this. Notice that I am not logged in, and now if I click add a new book, it takes me to the login page and not to the actual place where I can add the book. Let me log in, and notice it redirects then to the add a new book. This is the redirect to the intended that we looked at earlier. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching.